Welcome to Town Talk, the official podcast of Summerville, South Carolina, where we bring you the latest news, events, and interviews with the people who make our town special. I'm Chris Mikowski, the Public Information Officer for the town of Summerville, and also your host of Town Talk. In today's episode, I am super excited to have Diane Frankenberger with us, a Summerville resident and an owner of People, Places, and Quilts, with joining us today. Diane's journey from running a folk art and antique quilt store to becoming a beloved fabric shop owner is a unique and inspiring story of a community engagement and perseverance. Welcome to the show, Diane.
Thank you very much, Chris.
I'm super excited to have you and just to be able to pick your brain. You're the first true community member that is sitting on our podcast, and that's a huge accomplishment because we want to open this up not just for staff and for other people associated with the town of Summerville, but to our community and to our business owners.
I'm honored. Thank you very much.
Of course. And let's start at the very beginning, okay? Tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to Summerville and to where you're at today.
Well, that's a big question. I think a lot of people, it's an important question, sort of who are you? Sort of looking at a box of cereal even, what are the contents? And I'm in my 80th year, so I've had time to reflect back and who am I and what has made me who I am. I was born into a Navy family in Boston, Massachusetts. I lived there for only 6 weeks. My dad was going to MIT. We were a military family. We moved all over. I like to say I'm the great-granddaughter of Moses Frankenberger, who was from Bavaria, Germany, and came to this country with a pushcart and sold goods and wound up owning a 9-story department store in Charleston, West Virginia. He was very well respected, and when I went back to visit there, he was described as being of Hebrew descent, which I think is interesting. People have said that there's no Jewish store in Summerville, but I want to say there is, even though I'm a Christian. So I consider that my roots. My mother said I was getting in touch with my retail roots. So we moved all over. When I got married, I married into the military. We moved all over and we moved to Summerville, and I'd never lived in the South before. And as you probably know and others know, there's something very different and special, I think, about living in the South. And it's a culture, and I embraced it. And in Summerville, you were welcomed no matter who you were, where you lived, where your kids went to school. They appreciated the military, which is not always true in other places we've lived. And so I just thought that it was a wonderful place, and we moved away and came back 5 times. And then finally, when it was time for my husband to retire, we retired in Summerville. We had kept our house, and I even bought a cemetery plot. I'm here to stay. You're here to stay. This is home. It is home.
Overall, how long have you resided in Summerville?
We moved here the first time in 1967. So that's, I don't know, you do the math. It's over 50 years. Well, I'll figure out how old the kid is. He's 57, I think, yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
So that's a long time.
You've been here and you've seen a lot of stuff happen here in the Summerville area. We talk about that time and all over those many years. What in your opinion, what are the biggest things that have changed since you first moved here?
That is an interesting question, Chris, and it's something I think about all the time, especially with what's going on now and the proposed changes. The Summerville that I knew 57, 58 years ago, there were still dirt roads. There was one traffic light, and it wasn't even at Main Street. It was such a safe place where you could leave your doors unlocked. Everybody knew everybody else. A lot of people got their mail at the post office. It was a different culture, and probably that's a neat word to look up. Next to the Lord and my husband, I love Google best, but to look things up, the definition, and that's a point of reference, really. And change is, that's a cliche, but change is inevitable. And what I always look at is it fair? Is it honest? Who does it benefit? And there is a way to grow, I believe, so that it benefits all. And so right now, instead of everything just being in Summerville, no matter what it is, there's St. George, I'm thinking of Dorchester County, and that everybody should benefit clear up to Harleyville. in those towns. What is it? The illusion of scarcity versus the reality of abundance. There's enough to go around, and we should make sure that everybody has food, clothing, shelter, sewer, water. Those are all things that need to come as we grow. And a lot of things involve fear, I think. And so what's your greatest fear? What are you so afraid is going to happen? And then to deal with that. Part of that is we have a great police department that's been trained in how to deal with homelessness, how to deal with people that have a mental illness, how to deal with people who are drunk and disorderly. I've seen that because I have a business downtown, and they have been kind and patient. And Summerville's a great place to live. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, and I completely agree. And you said some change is inevitable, and that's just part of what it is. But the one thing that struck me in your response is the ability to just have a conversation with someone, right? When you are upset about something that is going on, everyone has a right to have their opinion, their thoughts, and that at least the town wants to hear it. But it starts with having honest conversations, being able to listen to one another as a community, and that's what's going to make Summerville thrive. And so hearing that you're talking with folks and having conversations just back and forth it's awesome to hear.
Well, I own a retail shop, and so you have customers sometimes that are not happy with something, and my first response is, I'm sorry that happened, or I'm sorry you're not happened, so tell me what happened. And if it's something that we have done, I love problems because I like to get real creative with solutions.
Yeah.
And someone just the other day, we couldn't get a ruler or a mat that was pretty expensive, and we finally got it in. And so the good news was that because we're starting our 34th year of business, I said, guess what? You get 34% off now instead of when you had bought it later. So that was sort of a win-win thing. We admitted, well, we really hadn't done the wrong thing. The darn thing hadn't come in yet, but when it did come in, we didn't have the information.
Yeah.
So I think part of being a good person, as opposed to a great person. Great is ego, and good is from the soul. Is being able to say, you know what, I made a mistake. I'm wrong. Yeah. And I've learned to be able to do that. I think it's fun to talk to people and find out what the issues are. I love making things right. I love helping. I love all our nonprofits. I love doing good. But you know what, Chris? Somebody has modeled that for me. Anything good I've ever done, it's because somebody else has done it. And I've thought, maybe it's taken a couple years. A long time ago, there was someone, Don Lynn, in Alexandria, Virginia. He used to put everybody's garbage can away on his way to work in the community gardens. And so now, on my way where I park for work, I'll put garbage cans away. And I think, Don Lynn used to do this. So, anyway.
It's the small things.
It is.
And surrounding yourself with people who help you see, a different aspect to life.
Be a better person.
That's a great message. And here in Summerville, there's a lot of those people. There's a lot of very, very, very good people here.
Well, I want to say, and I say this with no reservations, we have a great town council, we have a great mayor, I'm not going to use that word, we have a good town council, and we have a good mayor, and we have good county council. And I know each one of them, not personally as in you go over and have dinner, but I know them personally as I've heard them speak. I've seen them inside the proper rooms in front of fancy office furniture, and I've seen them on the street. And that's a blessing. I don't know that many people can say that. They are honestly good people, and they want what's best for the town, but they also lead good lives. At church, we learned that you're not to be judgmental, but you can be a fruit inspector. And what I mean by that, a good tree bears good fruit, and a bad tree bears bad fruit. So if one person's saying one thing, but living another way, that sends a message to me, actually, that they are not trustworthy.
Yeah, no, that's important. I want to circle back a little bit. We talked about your business a little bit, but I want to dig in. You know, how long has your, it's People, Places, and Quilts. It's here downtown. How long have y'all been open?
34 years.
34
Is that funny?
years. That is crazy.
It is crazy.
That's crazy.
Considering. When we lived in Alexandria, Virginia, I'd made a quilt for the church's fundraiser. It had Doug Williams on it. He was the quarterback for the Redskins. Anyway, I was selling tickets for it, and this was a word of prophecy. And so an older man, he's probably my age right now, he said this to me when I sold him a ticket. He said, "Young lady, you need to be in sales." And so here I am in sales. And Chris, how that came about, you know, as a military wife and a mom that stayed at home, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that. That's like being the supply corps of the Navy if you do your job right. But at the same time, I always was sort of restless and wanted to do stuff. I think I was a good mom because my kids could have boots and splash in puddles and dig in dirt and that sort of thing, but I didn't believe in TV. Anyway, back to this. So I have 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls, and when I was living up in Alexandria, Virginia, I worked very part-time for someone that had. She sold antique quilts and a little bit of fabric, and it was in an old carriage house, and the man that owned the carriage house had a 4th grade, it sounds like I'm making this up, I'm not, had a 4th grade education, and he told me he was raised in an orphanage. He was a very humble man, and I said, you know what, I know a neat store in Summerville that I could do this with, and it was the Cawthon's old hardware store. Mm-hmm. I really was so fond of Mr. and Mrs. Cawthon. They were like a mother and father to me. And although I had a mother and father, they lived elsewhere. And so when you move around, I always found somebody that was a mentor to me, and they were. Anyway, so I told this man, don't even remember his name, and he told me what to do. He said, you divide it up, you get like businesses in there, so you share a customer base, you make the rent real reasonable, blah, blah, blah. And Chris, when I came back down here, I went to the bank, and I borrowed the money, and I said afterwards to the bank manager, who was Buck and Avenant, I said, Buck, how come you lent me the money? He said, you were awfully convincing. And I did have a vision. We have a picture posted in the hallway that says you are here, and you look at that empty space, but I could see it just like the other one was, just like every person. I said that because I've done something good, it's because someone else modeled it for me. So there was a hallway, and there were 6 businesses. And then as I had more money, and that sounds, I was in the beauty parlor getting my hair cut, and I read somebody had left a business magazine, and I was reading about Hershey stock, and I thought, oh, Hershey stock. So I found somebody and I bought Hershey stock. Hershey stock did really well, Chris. And so as I made money on that and sold those shares, I mean, I don't know anything about that. I had 1 year of college at a Catholic girls' school, which was very good, and I appreciated my education, but I was not a business degree. But anyway, so I bought that stock, would sell it, and then I could add on to the building. I also took Crown Ministries and Financial Peace, and they taught me that I learned from that how to manage my money, and so I got the building paid off, and 34 years later, I'm still in business. I was just over at the bank. I was signing the thing from a credit line, and you know, it's, what is it? Well, is it a miracle when something happens that shouldn't happen? Yeah. Yeah. I would say so. And so we're in the whole building now. We don't have any of the other businesses. They expanded, or they went on, or they went out of business. And it was at a time, am I talking too much? No, no, absolutely not. Keep going. All right, it was at a time downtown, in the downtown Summerville that I loved. When we had come back, maybe we were back from Scotland where we lived for 4 years. When we came back, there was a Walmart to the north, which there still is now, and a Walmart to the south, which is where Harris Teeter is. And everything in between had closed up. The downtown was 60 to 40%. It wasn't boarded up, but it was closed up. It broke my heart. Yeah. It broke my heart. But anyway, that's when I opened my business. And 2 people, Kata McCoy and Rick Sutton, talked, and they're both residents of Summerville. Kata born here, I don't think Rick was, but anyway. And they talked about doing something, and they got a group of us together, the original board, and we became part of the Main Street program, which is administered through Columbia and I guess Washington, D.C., to resurrect there are a lot of great words that begin with R: redeem, resurrect. Anyway,
You could keep going.
Restore, I could, but I won't. And so we started the revitalization of downtown, and everybody went to that meeting at the old town hall. The police, SCE&G, fire department, water department, the mayor. It was endorsed by that because that's your tax base, you know.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing gets a little bit involved, but not. I mean, it's really very simple. Nothing is free, and so you want to. Well, anyway, that's a different topic. So what we were taught was that you don't badmouth anybody, whether it's Walmart or what, that you perceive as taking away your business, which they were. And instead, he asked the original question that you just asked me: who, as a town, do we want to be? That's what we asked ourselves. And the man who led our talks was Ben Boozer, and he said there was a town in North Carolina that reinvented itself as a Bavarian village, and maybe that still exists, and that's how they survived. But we decided in Summerville that we were going to be what, do you know Lex Melfi by any chance?
I do not,
You need to
personally.
interview him next, because
Okay.
he's a great artist that has a studio behind my building. And Lex always says this to me, and he's another great and good person. I'll say, Lex, thank you for doing such and such. And he says this. He says, I'm just me, baby, in a deep voice. And so that's what Summerville really is. I'm just me, baby.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody should be, themselves, but you have to look at who you are. So the downtown, slowly but surely, and things changed. Someone was just showing me pictures of the old town hall, well, the new old town hall, and big trees that were in front that had to come down.
Yeah.
The park got changed. The little courtyard, a new town hall was built, the little courtyard. New businesses have been put downtown, but thanks to the BAR, thanks to the things that we have in place, there's still a sense of place. And with the new development, we can change that. We can keep some of it if it's keepable, or we can do something similar. But I do trust, I guess the bottom line is, I trust county council, I trust town council, I trust our mayor, I trust the committees that have been put in place here at Town Hall, whether it's the BAR, Preservation Society, of course, has a voice in that. I just trust if we can all keep an open mind, not so open that everything falls out, but an open mind to say, why do we want to do this? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? And to hear one another, not to call names, not to imply that people are putting money in their pockets, because they're not, but just to hear what everybody has to say. And if we really listen, we're going to all come to that point where we say, this is it. This is perfect. Mm-hmm. Let's do it.
Yeah, and it starts with involvement. If maybe you don't have the trust that Diane has, but if you come to the meetings and if you have any concerns, make sure they're heard. I know for a fact that we want to hear concerns, and whether they come to me or they come right to the mayor or any other staff member or council member here, at least for the town of Summerville, any concerns we want to hear, because that's important. Listening to the community, understanding the community.
So my dad was a retired admiral, and as he lay dying, and you can have a spiritual leaving, just like you can have a spiritual beginning. But anyway, so he's dying, and I'm sitting there beside him, and I said, Dad, tell me something. And he's quiet for a bit, and I thought maybe he had passed. And then he said this to me. Now this was 15, 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. He said, Di, return all your phone calls. He's kind of a jokester. I said, Dad, are you kidding me? He said, no, nothing makes people more angry than to be discounted. So that's something I do, even if it's the 1-800 whatever, buy this or buy that. I return all my phone calls, and even if it's a robocall but with a real person, that's their job, and they're trying to earn a living, and I'm going to be polite. It takes less energy to be pleasant and say no thank you, and even though they keep talking, I very gently hang up, instead of being ugly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's my story.
No, that I think that's also a good message. The return your phone calls. That I think.
Or your emails or your texts.
It's so simple. That term is so simple, but if you really think deeply about it, it's powerful. It's really powerful, because people want to be heard.
And respected.
Exactly. And I without any bias, I agree. I think the people I work with here at the town are some of the most amazing people I have been surrounded with in my I would say, early career. I'm still young, but I've been in places and I've never been surrounded by such incredible people who represent the town and work here and give their time to the town of Summerville. And I feel very fortunate to be a part of that team.
I agree. Can I say one more thing?
Of course, yeah. You could say as much as you want.
People are not perfect.
No.
And when they're not, I feel I have a moral obligation to hold them accountable to their job or what it is they profess to be or do. And I myself agree to be accountable so that when I see somebody doing something that they shouldn't, I'm going to say something.
Yeah.
And I'm going to write a letter to the editor. But I'm not going to be mean-spirited or unkind about it, but I am going to say what you are doing is morally wrong. And if you don't do something about it, I'm going to the person who can correct that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's open communication and being transparent and those are moments if someone is doing something, community members, have the right to do that, and I respect that. I respect that you do that. I think that one keeps people accountable, but also helps people grow. Right?
It does. And biblically, it tells you go one-on-one, and after that, if that doesn't work, you take a friend with you, and after that, you tell it to the community. And if we all did that, it usually does not get you a standing ovation. People usually, their first response is they get angry, but that's okay. I'm still going to hold you in friendship. I'm thinking of someone that did get angry with me recently, but I still respect that person and I still want the best for them. But I do not regret what I did as far as saying this is not the right thing to do at this time in this place.
Yeah, and I think being able to accept that correction is it's a really good word, is also important too, because I mean from my standpoint, there's times in my career that I have messed up, and if I didn't have the people around me to be like, hey Chris, there's a better way of doing that, like look at your mistake here and work on it, correct it. And me being able to realize that and see the mistake, I never did it again because I learned. And everyone, like you said, everyone's not perfect. Everyone makes mistakes. And it's the people who are willing to listen and learn and grow from mistakes versus the people who kind of just want to stick to their ways, But I think what makes the town so special is we as a community support one another. A lot of community members I've seen since I've started working here is they will support the small businesses, your business and the other small businesses here in the town. We want to give our money back to the small businesses that work here in the town, but also care about the future. I think most people understand that the surrounding area and our area is growing rapidly. And how are we going to best, work through that as a community? And, to circle back, I think that's just what makes Summerville so special, is because the people that live in this community are, they're able to work together much more than I've seen in my time in the various communities that I've been involved in, whether that's when I used to live up north and then since I moved here 7-8 years ago.
I agree.
You said something to continue, and I'll stop talking, is, a lot of people are moving here. I'm one of them. I moved here in 2016.
Well, and I moved here.
Yeah, and but that doesn't mean that the people moving here are bad. Like you said, a lot of people bring great ideas, bring fresh ideas, and might be the missing puzzle piece to something, right? Whether that's your business that you own, they could be an employee that you've just been missing. They came from New York and they're here, and that's the employee you've been missing the whole time, and now you're functioning like a well-oiled machine. Versus someone who moves here and they're a great community member. They volunteer a bunch of nonprofits. Those are, that's what attracts people to Summerville. And could you elaborate that? Do you agree?
Sure. I got involved with the Public Works Art Center, and I'm thinking of, just had a meeting yesterday, somebody, Gretchen, I'll say her name, she brought, we just had a gala, or do you say gala? I don't know, we'll have to look that up too.
I think it's gala, but...
That sort of sounds like a meal. Gala sounds like you're having more fun.
If you guys know, just comment.
I'm going to say gala. But she brought just some fantastic ideas of how to decorate that I never would have thought of. In my own business, where we learn the most is when customers come in and show us where they've been or something they've seen, and so then we contact that company and get that product. There are various ways of getting information. I can sit in front of a computer all day, but I don't even have a real desk. I have almost like a little card table in our break room. I do most of my work at home. I just think I love learning new things. I love meeting new people. I love what I do. And although it's with fabric, that sounds just sort of like an old lady thing, doesn't it? But you know what? I'm getting back on, I don't even remember what you asked me. But anyway, with fabric, it's sort of like Legos, how you can put pieces together.
Yeah, I can see that.
And you can do, whether it's a flag or your shirt, or you can even make a map. So there's texture to that. But now I'm seeing a whole lot of younger people, and by younger I mean in their 30s and 40s, getting into it. And of course the machines they have nowadays, you wouldn't believe. Men regard those as power tools, which they are, and they get into the embroidery business for shirts and hats and things like that. But mainly what people tell me with the sewing aspect of it, and men were tailors, so I'm going to keep going back to that, is what comfort it brings to them in times of sorrow or when they are going through a hard time, where they can sit and do that, or if they're in the hospital or you have to sit with people. That is such an old-fashioned thing of sitting with people or visiting. My husband and I just visited somebody in the hospital, and I realized how important that is, because somebody did that. Several people did that for me, to go and visit. It's biblical too, to do that, visit the sick and dying, although he wasn't dying, thank goodness. And people in jail, that's another whole ministry too, to do that, the Kairos Prison Ministry. I love making a difference. I really love making a difference. And Summerville is full of nonprofits. I've gotten away from the fabric thing, but we make a difference in the store that we're in, that I have. And I said I worked for someone before, and I learned things from working there, but I also learned what not to do. And I resolved that when I did have a store, people could use our restrooms. Not only that, Chris, we have restrooms with character and restrooms with no character, so they have a choice. And we have toy tables for kids, and we have places for people to sit. And you're allowed to eat and drink in our store. But I am not above saying to somebody, and have said to somebody with a lot of kids using a restroom, you may use the restroom, but I want it just as clean as it is right now when you leave. I've also had to ask people to leave, grown-ups who were not behaving, using bad language, and I'm not afraid to, unfortunately, part of the business is going sometimes to court and bringing charges against someone that's stealing. And I say that's real important for people to do, because people, if you don't learn the lesson, then you keep repeating it. And the person that did this had a prior incident that was never reported. And Chris, I'm going to tell you this. Oh, and I got a funny story. Let me tell you about payroll check. We're an honest business. I mean, we might do things out of ignorance, but it's never out of deceit. Yeah. So anyway, we got this notice one time. They were coming to check our payroll records. I mean, I didn't know that people could just walk in and demand your records. But anyway, that was, and maybe I've got that wrong. But anyway, they were coming to check something that had to do with payroll and withholding and taxes. So this woman showed up, and she was probably, golly day, in her early 40s, a little business suit on, high heels, the whole works. I was scared to death of her. But anyway, she went and looked at everything, and when she finished, she said, "We passed." And I thought we'd get a neat little sticker like you do at restaurants, you know, an A. So I asked her, I said, "So do we get something to put on our front door? And she said, no, you just don't get fined. Anyway.
Hey, sometimes that might be better than a sticker, you know?
Well, I don't know. I wanted a sticker.
I don't blame you.
I'm competitive in some areas like that.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's not.
I would like a sticker too. Maybe they should look into providing stickers. You know, that should be a recommendation. But you know, I want to dig into that a little bit. You brought up a question that I had in my mind. What are some challenges that you faced owning a business here, just in general, but also here specifically in Summerville?
I think Summerville is a great place to do business. We also had a store in Charleston for 12 years in an old grocery store. And that was just a whim, too, to open that. That was fun. That was a whole different way, but that's Charleston and we're Summerville. But Charleston was hard at the time. Maybe they've changed. It was really hard to get the necessary permits, blah, 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 all of that stuff. Summerville is a lot easier, but I have friends that have said how hard it is to get permitting, to find information at this town hall. And I have said to them, then you need to find somebody who is in charge and tell them what your difficulties are so they can resolve them. In the old days, I won't mention any names, somebody at town hall was giving me a really bad time 35 years ago. And I called the mayor because that was my last resort. And I said, Mayor Myers, I don't expect any favors. I really don't. But by golly day, time is money. And I've been given a bad time and a runaround. And I need your help. And I had my permit that afternoon. So that was a challenge. The other challenge is, I think when I fired somebody, I would like to see the laws change for being people who are fired. You can go to court. I did go to court, but it was over the phone. And that person hired a real lawyer, and I just had my junior high debate skills. I lost, but I won because there were 2 more people that were friends of hers that probably would have tried to get workman's, unemployment.
Yeah.
So that doesn't sound like a big deal because you pay into it all the time, but these are all the things you don't know. If someone files a complaint against you, your rates go up. They withhold more. I've forgotten how many years it took for us, but in all the 34 years, that's the only problem we've had with that. And I felt like it was unfair.
Yeah.
When things, I'm always for the underdog.
Yeah.
And when things are unfair, I want to set them right.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I respect that. That's good.
I want to, and I'm gonna go to bat for somebody else too.
Mm-hmm.
I really am. I'm gonna testify. One time, somebody stole a pack of cigarettes at the Piggly Wiggly, and I saw him do it. I wasn't going to say anything. I thought, I just don't want to say I saw that. But I went up to Jimmy K. I thought, pack of cigarettes today, my card tomorrow. So I said, took a pack of cigarettes. He said, are you willing to testify? I said, I am. So went to court, testified. That young man's mom, when she passed me after she, swore that she had bought those cigarettes for him, she said to me, I'm going to kill you. Oh gosh. What is that saying? Live free or die?
Oh.
I do feel that way, but anyway. I was going to dye my hair because I'm kind of noticeable. Anyway, so those are just, I'm off subject again, but I'm always off subject.
No, that's what makes these podcasts so special and different compared to any other avenue that the town has, is because we can have these conversations. They don't have to be on topic.
So it's just dealing with things. And that quilt for with Doug Williams and the Washington Redskins, I shouldn't say this out loud, but math has never been my gift. I hated fractions. I thought they were stupid. I almost didn't open the fabric store because I didn't want to do fractions. That's another story. So anyway, I got this quilt already put together. And the way it was, Doug Williams was holding the football and doing something, and his foot, one leg was hanging down, the other one was bent. And I realized I had miscalculated by 10 inches. Oh my gosh, I thought, what am I going to do? You know what I did? I made his foot hang off the quilt. That started a whole new thing with quilts, art quilts, where things could be off the quilt.
So you created a trend.
I did.
That's cool.
I did. It was cool. So I love problems because there's always a solution, and I can get real creative. I'm going to keep it legal, but I can always get creative.
That's so cool. That's so cool. So you're a trendsetter,
I guess.
Humbly.
Yeah.
Over the 34 years, has business been good here in Summerville?
Business was great at the beginning, surprisingly enough, because we were a destination. Like, I believe St. George will be again, Ridgeville will be again, Harleyville. There's a quilt shop that has opened up in Harleyville, Angel Oak Stitchery, with Roger and Vicki, and they are just great. They're in an old Piggly Wiggly. It's a great place, a great space, and there's a neat restaurant up there. And I told them, I said, you all are going to be the start of the revitalization of this downtown. And that's already started to happen, I believe. And so when we first opened, we were a destination. There were 6 businesses in there. Kata opened the bookstore. We had a frame shop. Other businesses were starting. There were a few places to eat. So that was fun for people to Charleston to come up and visit here, and they saw what you and I have seen. This is a great place back then. And then the decline in 2007 and 8, that hurt us. COVID didn't hurt us so much because we were a fabric store, and everybody.
Did you build masks?
Everybody needed masks.
Yeah.
And what we did was, instead of raising prices, we gave people 20% off. People were making masks for military and the police and that needed masks. We made them for the downtown businesses for free. Anyway,
That's incredible.
We had fun doing that because fabric comes in all different colors and shapes, but the police and the military needed, black and blue and green.
But you jumped on that and helped the community.
We did.
That's amazing.
And as a business, although I was folk art and antique quilts, I changed that to fabric because someone showed me on a calculator how I could do fractions. And then I did take classes through SCORE and other places because I wasn't educated for that, find out how to do things. And then people helped me along the way when Mr. Anderson was my tax man, and Kata, anyway, my friend Kata that had the bookstore, she explained inventory to me because I thought if it was in the store and wasn't sold, that was a debit, but it's an asset, apparently. Anyway, Mr. Anderson just, he'd start out real calm and a soft voice, and then his voice would raise as he got more excited and saw what mistakes I was making. Anyway, Kata said this to me. She said, Diane, the IRS doesn't care what you do with your money. You can put it in the bank, you can put it under your pillow, you can buy fabric, but it's an asset. And until you sell it, you can't even deduct the cost of it. So inventory sales are real if they're done properly.
Okay.
Because you want to get your inventory down because that's your asset, and now it's gone, and so now it's a debit in the eyes of the IRS, and you can deduct what it cost you.
Wow.
I know, it's just,
It's so much. It's
too much, and if I'd known about kids and all that's involved with them too, I probably never would have had children. So that's life, isn't it?
It's life. It'll sneak up on you. We talked about your business and how long y'all have been open and how important it's been and how it made an impact here in not just Summerville, but Charleston and the Low Country as a whole, especially during.
Chris, I wouldn't go that far.
During the COVID, building masks and making masks for folks. That's a huge accomplishment, and you should pat yourself on the back for that because during that moment, everyone was stressed, scared, and we didn't know what was happening.
It's true.
And you stepped to the bat and helped people feel safer.
Well, that I'm going to give credit to my employees. And
I love that.
A lot of them, one in particular, our manager, DW, we call her, the other Diane, and just the sanitizing and keeping things safe for both us and our employees. And our shop is huge, so we could be open legally. I did call to make sure that we could. And so we practiced all those safeguards, and it worked, but I really have wonderful employees. I am blessed, and I've had them over 34 years. We've had wonderful employees.
That's amazing.
Even the one that got fired brought something special. I wouldn't have hired her in the first place if she didn't have something special. And everybody, including me, has a bit of brokenness, and I just want to extend grace. And that was not a bad person. That was a good person, and we disagreed on something.
Yeah, and that said, what's the future look like for the business? Is it just going with the flow, or do you have a plan?
I have no plan. I don't like plans.
Don't like plans. So you're just
like
going with the flow?
No, my plans, what I do every day, I make sure I like what I'm wearing, because my mother always made me wear clothes that I didn't like. She was very pale, blonde hair, blue eyes. People used to ask her if I was adopted in my early days. I'm still pretty dark-skinned and had really dark brown hair and one black eyebrow and the Frankenberger eyebrow, the curse of that. And so I wanted to wear, purple and black and things like that. Anyway, so I like what I'm wearing, even though it's sort of casual here. Mm-hmm. And I always make sure I like what I'm having for dinner. Mm-hmm. And those are my two things. Say my prayers in the morning and meet them, and try and live that way through the whole day. And I'm in my 80th year. That's old, Chris, no matter how you cut it.
I couldn't even tell.
That's
honestly.
80's old. And most of my employees were older and wiser. I love the wisdom of where we are. I'm blessed with the employees. We have some that lower our average age to maybe 60 instead of 90 or something. So I just, a day at a time. When we closed the Charleston shop, we knew it was time. We all agreed. Somebody was going to buy the building and wanted a 10-year lease. I wanted my southern lease of 1 year. That was Joe Shackney. He is just wonderful. And the man who owned it was a Mr. Poinsett. And his family, and they were wonderful. And I didn't want to sign a 10-year lease. And so we all agreed, and the time was right. We were out of business cards. Our little intern graduated from the College of Charleston. The manager's husband had lost his job. They were moving to Alabama. Everything just fell into place. And although we hated to close the store, it was the right thing to do. And so we'd always been in Summerville. And so folks just come up to Summerville. Yeah. But we missed the old store. It was on the corner of Henrietta and Elizabeth, right downtown. So day at a time, I'm still interested in what I do. I still love getting new fabrics and having great ideas. We changed the shop around a whole lot yesterday. I'm not allowed on ladders, but when nobody's there, I will get on one. Mm-hmm, I'll do it. But I know that's dangerous. And I did get real sick, 2 years ago or something, I guess. And a little ride in the ambulance, and got a cow valve and a pacemaker. And anyway, it's another death story, when people die and you want to know what they saw. So they said, "We're losing you." I just remember the little person in the ambulance. He had lovely brown eyes. And he said, "You need to breathe. We're losing you." And I said, "I can't." It's very peaceful to die. You just quit breathing. There was no pain involved in that. And you know what I saw, Chris? I didn't see. No angels no trumpets, no angels. God didn't say, "Well done, good and faithful servant." What I saw, believe it or not, I saw all of time. I saw from the very beginning to the very end. I saw all of time. And it was all together, just like that. That's all it was just a whole globe it was all together. And I turned to God and I said this to him. I didn't actually see him, but I said to him, "You are really clever." That's what I said. Then I woke up, sort of woke up. Took me a long time, months really, to get well. But anyway, and that experience taught me that instead of living by control, I wanted to live by grace. Yeah.
Powerful experience.
It was. And everybody at the store, man, they just pitched in and did just,
had your back.
Just fine without me. Yeah,
had your back. And
they did.
And that's the importance. I tell my peers, and I'll tell other people in my circle, is surround yourself. I always strive to surround myself with people that are smarter than me. I think that is something that I will always do, and something I did since I was young, is I surround myself with, I did not want to be the smartest person in the room. I wanted to be surrounded by those smart people so I can listen to those conversations and hear from those people so I can get better and so I can understand, that wisdom, right? And that's another reason why we brought this podcast on for the town, in a sense, is because now the community can listen to, for example, your wisdom and your history and everyone else's and the future of our guests. And that's what's important about this aspect. It's a totally different way of providing communication for the town that I'm sure a lot of people aren't really used to. Most people listen to podcasts now, but from a municipality standpoint, it's different. This is new. And that's what makes it important, though, because we're all people. we all have stories that I think any of us in our little community.
That's what's fun, the stories.
And that said, I want to pick your brain a little bit more before we bring this train home. You know, Summerville.
I love trains.
Do you? Are you a big train person?
Oh, I love it that the train comes through a town. Do you know what it means? Do you know what the white sort of paddles are with the lines on them?
No, but you got to tell me.
Long and short, the whistle.
Really?
That is long, the circle is short.
Wow.
Long, long,
You
short.
learn something every day. I swear.
Somebody told me that.
Really?
Yeah, isn't that neat?
That is so cool. And so you're a big train person?
I love the trains.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of trains.
I love the graffiti on the trains.
Do you? Yeah, you like seeing it, the art?
Well, it's just incredible. And it appears to be the work of the one person, or there are people that are schooled in that because of the way the letters are done. So that would be interesting to research that. I'm sure somebody has.
You know, it could be interesting, but I remember as a kid, when I was living up in Pennsylvania, I've always been a fan of trains myself. I just think they're super cool. I think most people are. You know, when you see one coming, you can't help but to just watch it. Yeah, I used to put. My mom used to take me. We'd put a penny on the railroad tracks, and we'd leave it there, and then we'd wait for the train to go by, and we'd go back, and either the penny was still there, or it was probably on the left or right, and it was completely flattened out and like big, and that was so cool.
Transportation. Well, anyway, we're off the subject, but maybe sometime we can talk about the Dorchester History Center and the need for history. And I love, just thinking about transportation, and the first thing was your feet. And then the next thing was maybe a sack, if you had that, how to carry things, or the animals. And then, thinking about the wheelbarrow. Who invented the wheel? Just, Chris, life is just so interesting with just how things evolve to what you finally come to.
Yeah.
It really is. All right, what were you going to ask me though before I sidetracked you about trains?
I think we just got a sneak peek into episode 2 with Diane Frankenberger. In the future, I guess we'll have to bring you back.
Love it.
Yeah, but I want to pick your brain. We talked about this at the beginning. Summerville's changing. The change that you've seen over your time. In your opinion, what are some of the biggest concerns that you have currently here within our town?
For myself personally, and the town is aware of this, and the merchants always talk about it, in order for a civilization to survive, one of the things that has to happen is they have to feel a sense of safety before you're going to paint or do anything creative, or you're going to farm or be permanent. So you have to feel safe that you're not going to be attacked. So I don't feel like I'm going to be attacked by people, but I need to feel safe when I cross the street. And I don't feel safe crossing any of the streets for a very simple reason. The right turn on red, and it's nothing the town has done. It's the drivers who are doing, who are texting, who are eating or drinking or not paying attention. I am so, and I am going to own it because of my age. At one time, I was fearless. I really was. And now I won't cross at corners rarely. I'll cross in the middle of the street where I have more visibility. And to the credit of everybody here, they are so kind and considerate in letting people pass. I will say this about people who are not from here and honk their horn. I just always say, down south, when you honk your horn, it means you love Jesus. That usually stops them. Anyway, so just pedestrian safety, and in other places what they have done, once again in Alexandria, Virginia, their light system is that everybody stops, nobody can go, and you can jaywalk. So that and I think we've come to that on several of our streets. Richardson and Cedar, Richardson and Maine, also dangerous places up there by the end of the park and by the railroad track. I know Wiley Johnson had those flashing things put in there, and that was a very good idea. Whenever there are flashing things, that's just something different than a light, and hopefully people pay attention to that. I know I have an obligation. I always try and make eye contact with people, always thank them when they let me cross the street, when they can turn right on red, even though I have the little person. They don't always see that. So that that is my main concern. And also people on bicycles and skateboarding, because of the way the stores are. Most of them have a window that juts out a little bit, and then there's your door, and there's like a foot or two, and then you hit the sidewalk. So if someone's not paying attention, either the person coming out or the person on their bike. So when you say things to most people who are on their bikes, they don't say, "Oh, thank you, ma'am, for telling me that." They usually say something else to you.
Yeah.
Which makes me want to say something back.
Yeah.
But I don't. But anyway, they're already gone.
Yeah.
So that, that's a minor detail. But I'm not worried about business. I'm not worried about the Flower Town Festival taking away customers. That's another whole thing for that one weekend. In our town, I think they're very respectful of what they do schedule in closing streets off. I really, Chief Wright and Chief Waring, the mayor, Mayor Waring, town council, people listen here. I know that not only where maybe they do know me, but I know that anybody could come up to town hall, and as long as they were acting in a respectful manner, somebody's going to listen to them. But if you come in and you're using bad language and finger pointing, that's usually not going to get you where you want to be. People are still going to be polite to you, but you've already sort of put a little blockade up for yourself.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I'm even just for me, if there's someone that's wanting to talk, I kind of have an open door policy even to the community. I mean, anyone's willing to reach out to me or visit and talk with me. And as a public information officer, I'm more of I can help you with any of our communication stuff. But that said, I think we definitely are going to have to do an episode 2 with you in the future.
We haven't really talked about business at all.
No, but we jumped in it, but we'll go into it next time, But that said, I want to give you an opportunity to address anything else before we wrap the episode up for the sake of the community. Do you have anything else you would like to add for the episode?
Well, I think a lesson learned with the 500 block of Main Street is I did not see those hearings, for lack of a better word, advertised. I never went to any of them, or I would have. But I read the newspaper. I do look at my phone, to see what's going on. Mark Fuller does a great job with Positively Summerville posting things that are coming up. So I miss that, and I think if I missed it, I think a lot of other people missed it. So the next thing we knew, here was a proposal for the 500 block, which did involve taking the hospital down. It was just a proposal, though. It was sort of like, will you marry me? Well, somebody can still say, no, I've never seen you before in my life. Why would you ask me that? So then the public had a great deal to say about that. And then new renderings have come about. So I love some of the ideas hearing that. And so once again, there are some different things that are coming up. There's something tomorrow night. There are various things coming up. And I think if we all can listen and we are respectful to county council, this is a county council thing. This is not a town thing. Although the BAR will have a say in it because they have jurisdiction over that, that we need to be respectful and be expectant. Some of the most recent renderings that I've seen are the most exciting things. Some people object to the parking garage. Well, folks, I want to say, what's pretty about miles of asphalt and cars and trucks parked in it? I would rather see a brick parking garage that blends in with trees around it the way ours blends in here in town. Town Hall is just great the way they have put all these things together like Legos. It's like a little Lego community. St. Luke's did it with their property. St. Paul's has a little bit, they had more property. They had 7 acres, whereas St. Luke's maybe had 2 in town here. So I love to see what people have done. And of course the BAR has the last word. That's another whole great group of people who want the right thing. For keeping a sense of place. Yeah. And I think that's what people want. They want the security and a sense of place. But change is good. You read about how people don't want to get rid of old recliners and chairs and, well, anyway. But sometimes it's time to get rid of the old shirt and get a new one. So that's how I'm looking at it.
Hey, that's okay. I mean,
but save your old quilts.
Save your old quilts. That's the important message here.
Okay.
Well, Diane, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to come to Town Hall and have a conversation with me.
It was fun. Thank you.
Yeah, this was fun. I think the community will really enjoy this episode, and we definitely in the future will have to bring you back in for another episode. And
let's talk about history, and transportation, and carrying water. And things like that.
Sneak peek, and it'll be in the future. We got a few episodes in line, but we'll definitely bring you back. But Diane, thank you so much.
Thank you. That was fun, Chris.